Alive and alert on the north side of the dirty. It is your man D Real coming at you with a little Be Real with D Real, where edutainment is what I do. Product placement. Anyway, I was sitting around the other day and I was thinking about how I am always getting into arguments with people about the racial inequities of this country and where they come from. And I don't think a whole lot of people fully grasp what's going on in this country or what has been going on in this country. It's a Black History moment. So get ready. This one's going to be a doozy. Before I drop it on you, I need y'all to do what you always do for your mans and them. Comment, like, subscribe, and share the Be Real with D Real page so that when new material comes out, you get it. If you're digging what a brother's shoveling, put some dirt in my bucket. Comment, like, subscribe, and share the page. Now, as I was saying, product placement. That's not what I'm here for, though. I have a little bit of watermelon juice. I'm going to get into it. There are always people of this complexion saying to me, slavery is over, D. Why are you always talking about slaves? And why are you always telling white people they owe or they need to understand what's gone on before? Because they don't. They don't understand what's going on before, and they don't understand what's going on now and how all of that shit is connected. So if you can follow the golden thread through the labyrinth, as it were, you will find your way back to where it started. So if it's good enough for Theseus and Athens and Greek mythology, then it's good enough for y'all. Let's follow this thread to where it's supposed to go. Now, we're talking about slavery. Okay, I am aware that that most of the Caucasian people that I deal with have never owned slaves. And their parents have most likely never owned slaves. Their grandparents and great-grandparents, not so much innocence, my friend. And I ain't gonna get into how the generational wealth has given them an advantage over people. I'm gonna just show you. Where does all of this originate from? The Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, in order to understand why the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was necessary, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it in a minute, but to understand why the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was needed, was required, was necessary, was because of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. What is in the Civil Rights Act of 1866? Okay, it was enacted on April 9th, 1866. That is about 10 months, roughly, after Galveston, Texas, received the news that the Emancipation Proclamation had been passed and that the slaves were free in 1863. Now, what is the primary objective of the Civil Rights Act of 1866? Boom! Let's blow that up. And we're going to read. The act had three primary objectives for the integration of African Americans into the American society following the Civil War. One, a definition of an American citizen. Two, the rights which come with this citizenship. And three, the unlawfulness to deprive any person of citizenship rights on the basis of race, color, or prior condition of slavery or involuntary servitude. The act accomplished these three primary objectives. Question: what would happen to people who violated the tenets within the Civil Rights Act of 1866? Well, let's slide down here a little bit, and I'm gonna tell you. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 also said that any citizen has the same right that a white citizen has to make an enforced contract, sue and be sued, and present evidence in court, and inherit, purchase, lease, sell, hold, and convey real and personal property. The act guaranteed to all citizens equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of person and property, as enjoyed by white citizens, and like punishment, pains, and penalties. Get ready. Persons who denied these rights on account of race or previous enslavement were guilty of a misdemeanor and upon conviction, fined an amount not exceeding $1,000 or imprisonment not exceeding 1 year or both. So, back in 1866, 76, 86, when the Ku Klux Klan was around in the 1880s and they were lynching and killing motherfuckers, all that shit was a misdemeanor? Is that what you're saying to me? Is that why it was allowed to go on from the 1880s to the 1900s to the 1950s? You know what I'm saying? That brutality against Blacks went on for decades. Okay? So much so that we had to implement, yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, enacted July 2nd, 1964. It is, let's see what it is. Bam. Okay, it is a landmark civil rights and labor law in the United States that outlaws discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. It prohibits unequal application of voter registration requirements, racial segregation in schools and public accommodations and employment. Initially, powers given to enforce the act were weak, but these were supplemented during later years. Congress asserted its authority to legislate under several different parts of the United States Constitution, principally its power to regulate interstate commerce. Okay. That's not what's important. Okay. The Civil Rights Act, as it relates to Black people, race, color, okay, as it relates to Black-bodied people, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Civil Rights Act of 1866 are connected by the 13th Amendment. Okay. Now, let me set this up because this is the coup de grace is coming here in a second. All right. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime. Except as punishment for a crime. Kind of know where I'm going from there, don't you? The amendment was passed by the Senate on April 8, 1864, by the House of Representatives on January 31st, 1865, and ratified by the required 27 of the 36 states on December 6, 1865, and proclaimed on December 18th. It was the first of the 3 Reconstruction Amendments adopted following the American Civil War. Okay, so between the Civil Rights Act, 1866, between the Civil Rights Act, 1964, and the 13th Amendment, that made it kind of difficult to discriminate against Black people. Because we know it was real easy in the 1900s. Black people weren't harassed and bothered. This is what happened. They created a community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, filled with nothing but affluent Blacks. Like those Black people right there. Like those Black people right there. That right there was the fate of Black Wall Street at the hands of jealous, hateful Caucasian people. Not only was property destroyed, lives were taken. I still ain't heard nothing about, what was the compensation for that shit. I still haven't. So if anybody knows about, the people who were a part of the Greenwood, Archer, and Pine massacre, what did they get compensated? What did their descendants get compensated? Not a damn thing, as far as I know. I could be wrong. Show me where, please. A link, an article, anything will do. Now enter the crack cocaine epidemic of the United States. Oh, wait, I missed an event. Tricky Dick Nixon. They like, what? What's a Tricky Dick Nixon? Tricky Dick Nixon is a president. And Tricky Dick Nixon was a president that enacted laws and inserted drugs into the Black neighborhoods and into the neighborhoods of people who dwelled in places like the Haight-Ashbury district in San Francisco, the town of Berkeley in California, hippies, or what I'm talking about. Okay, so that anybody who had drugs on them got thrown in jail for an inordinate amount of time. What does the 13th Amendment say again? Slavery is okay if you're a prisoner. Yeah. Now, back to this crack cocaine epidemic. In the 1980s, basically, and I don't know why I got George Bush up there, but Ronnie Reagan was in office when the crack cocaine epidemic hit its height. Basically, you have cocaine flooding out of Colombia to Miami, and there was so much cocaine in this country that they couldn't get it all into the country, so they started cracking it up when they got it here. It was easy to make, it was easy to sell, and you could set up a crack lab any damn where. Now, strangely enough, crack cocaine only made it to Black neighborhoods. Imagine that. Okay, let's go a step further. Take a look at the incarceration rate in federal prison. The left demographic is U.S. population. The right demographic is the amount of that population that is incarcerated. You will notice blacks have a slight edge, but that's strange since we make up less than 20% of the population. That means, wait for it, there are more black people in prison than there are walking the streets. Why is that? Well, in order to understand that, you have to understand the term privatized prisons. What are privatized prisons, D-Real? I'm so glad you asked that question. Privatized prisons are prisons that are set up like tenement buildings. The more prisoners that are in these privatized prisons, the more money privatized prisons make. Percentage of prisoners in privatized prisons. Now look at that. New Mexico, 45.8%. Alaska, 28.9%. It ain't even enough black people in Alaska for it to be 28.9%. That is my indigenous brothers that make up that demographic. Hawaii, 35% of those prisons are privatized prisons. So, in conclusion, what did we learn, boys and girls? There is, in fact, slavery and slaves in the United States right now. Now, if we talk about after during the Reconstruction era, black laws, vagrancy laws, if you was just walking around and you was black, they could throw you in prison and they didn't have to put a time limit on it. I'm just throw you in prison and forget about your black ass. And that's how a lot of black people ended up in prison. And now they found a way to profit off of that. Prisons should not be privatized. Period. You commit a crime, you go to prison, you do your time, you get rehabilitated, hopefully, and you get out. But see, what happens with black people when they get out of prison? They're discriminated against. There are a crap ton of states where you can't do shit if you're a felon. You can't vote. You can't hold a job in certain places. You can't hold federal jobs. You know what I'm saying? So not only does being in prison stigmatize you, it limits your ability to take care of yourself. And so you end up becoming a vagrant. You end up becoming a criminal. And you end up where? Right back in prison, where, according to the 13th Amendment, it's okay to treat your ass like a slave. That's it for now. But I will be coming at you with another one of those other ones. And until I do, y'all be good. Be good to each other.